Happy Wednesday, students. I've been missing you and hoping that you've been doing well during this time where we are apart. I have collected a lot of data off of each of you. You've done wonderful work reading by yourself, going online, doing all the assignments that I've asked, hopefully. And now I'd like to go over for this Wednesday our PowerPoint. I have been sending these PowerPoints to your parents. I hope that you've been getting a chance to look at them. I've also been posting them at Google Classroom. And so this one is for our reading class for Wednesday, April the 8th, our 8th day. So there are some suggestions, of course, on how we can remain safe. You notice that I have on a mask in this photograph. One of my neighbors did a kindness and she brought that to us. We've got masks from her. And of course, the coronavirus safety steps. Disinfect surfaces around your home and work. Wash your hands for at least 20 seconds. And if you sneeze or cough, cover your mouth with your elbow or maybe even a handkerchief. They'll probably be coming back in style. So last week was our first week in digital learning. Some of you indicated that you really liked it a lot and you did really well. And some people mentioned that their cell phones have become a big distraction for them, or that friends keep chatting with them in Google Hangouts or whatever, that they're distracted more so than in a classroom. I thought that was kind of interesting, but a lot of people love it. So I hope that you will begin to enjoy it because we might as well enjoy the time we're spending in our isolation. Now, every day, of course, you need to log in to Google Classroom. And you need to visit my class because I have to mark you absent if you don't do the attendance activity at bare minimum. And of course, your grades are being logged in Focus or Portal, whichever you call it. I'm sending you all of my love. And of course, our healthcare providers are our heroes now. So if you have a family member who is working in the healthcare field, be sure to tell them that Mrs. Barber says thank you. I greatly appreciate them, and so does everyone else in our community. So, like we always have, you would get out your spiral and agenda, and today is Wednesday, April the 8th, and you're going to copy into your agenda or wherever you're keeping a checkoff list, okay, wherever you're keeping it, your assignments. So last week you had an assignment that was due. You had most of the week to work on it, and it was based on a PBS show called The Great American Read, and they tried to figure out through an in-depth journalistic research the greatest book in American history for the 20th century. And of course, they looked at The Giver as possibly being one, and you watched a brief video, hopefully, and you worked on the questions that you were supposed to have for viewing it. And then you also worked on the vocabulary words, and you put them in your second section of your two-subject spiral. Some of you didn't do this assignment. Now I need you to do it if you didn't. Take a picture, a photograph of your viewing questions and the vocabulary, okay? And send it to me as an attachment to my school email. Now, of course, as it always is in reading, your homework is that you keep your spiral nice and neat and you read for pleasure, about 30 minutes each day. I'd rather it not be online blogs because, you know, I've noticed some of your writing is slipping. People are using just the letter U for you and all kinds of interesting things. So if you're going to read for pleasure, make sure it's something that has been edited by a professional editor. I did want to point out that this is the assignment I was speaking about, and it's attached under, and it's called Day 3 Reading Intensive. So it's in there. If you can look at it, it will tell you all of the steps. Like it'll say, watch this video, and there's like a hyperlink. And then it'll say part 2, answer these questions while you are viewing the video, which is very short. Then it'll say vocabulary. Copy these words and definitions into your 2-subject reading class spiral in the 2nd section, and write a sentence for each word and draw a picture. Okay? So each of these words, we'll go over them. One is hero, a person who shows courage and is admired for their achievements. And then there's empathy, the act of understanding or being sensitive to the thoughts, feelings, and experiences that others have, is what it should say. Relate, to have a feeling of understanding or connection to something or someone. Dystopia, an imaginary place that is unpleasant, where there's a lot of injustice and people lead fear lives. I think I should say fearful lives. Utopia, an imaginary place where everything is perfect and ideal. Genre, a form of art, music, or literature that is characterized by style or subject, for example, science fiction, mystery, romance, etc. We all have our own favorites. Society, a community, nation, or broad group of people who share a common way of life. And then aspect, a part or feature of something. So, like, what is the most fun aspect of staying home? So you're going to use these in a sentence, as well as just copying the words and definitions. And then you're going to draw a picture that illustrates the way that you used it in your sentence. You're going to take a photograph of this and these and send them to me as attachments to my school email. So each day in Google Classroom, I try to give you a little step-by-step as to what you're going to do, and then I include the PowerPoint. Now, for some of you, you might have to download the PowerPoint in order to view it completely, but it doesn't alter too much. I'll tell you to read and review your PowerPoint, do the attendance activity. Today it happened to be, Tuesday it happened to be catch up with whatever work you had missing from last week, okay? And then do the exit ticket. And there was no quiz with that particular vocabulary. And then Monday had its own set of step-by-steps along with a PowerPoint. Friday, same thing, and I even had the hyperlink there for you, and then it told you exactly where to send the completed work. Thursday, same thing. So the key thing is that all homework is to be typed or neatly handwritten. And if you handwrite it, then I need you to take a picture of it with your smartphone or your parent's smartphone, and then send it as an attachment to this email. The reason why I don't want to have it sent to my Google Classroom or my Google email is because every time a child submits an assignment, I get an email. So literally every day, if I have 115 students, imagine every attendance activity and every exit activity they do, I get an email. And if you send me your work, it's going to get lost in the black hole of emails until I can sort through them. So please send your work here. Anything that you need from me immediately, send here, and I will see it quickly. Anything else, you can send to the Gmail account, but it'll just take me time to get to it. Okay? And some people have trouble getting the Gmail account to actually even post. So here's what's going to happen today. You'll review the PowerPoint, which is what we're doing together. You'll do the attendance activity. You'll listen to me read aloud the giver, and you'll take notes in your spiral in the first section. Then you can read for fun, and you'll do a little exit ticket. You're going to listen, read, and quiz on one book in Raz Kids. Good old Raz Kids, which we will talk about at the end of this video. So, your attendance activity, all right? Your attendance activity is in your Google Classroom. You will click on it, attendance activity for today's date. And as you recall, before the spring break, you were selected for a certain assignment or job, just like Jonas and his friends. And you got a card that sort of told your different responsibilities. For your attendance activity today, I want you to pretend that you are a new 12 in Jonas's community, and you are just starting training in your new job, whatever your job was, receiver, director of fours, nighttime nurturers, etc., fish hatchery. Maybe you're a caretaker for the elders, for the old. Maybe you're the recreation director, the person who does all the PE. That's always fun. Or maybe you're a nurturer for the little babies. What do you think would be your first task that you have to learn to become a successful person in your assigned job? What do you think is the first thing? Obviously, if you are a birth mother, they're not going to automatically take you at the age of 12 and say, okay, now it's time for her to be pregnant. No, there's years of training. What sorts of things would they be training you so you're ready and able to do the work that they need? Okay. Then, of course, we're looking at your listening skills. So, I would like for you to open your two-subject spiral, and I am going to read to you from this link. Okay? I'm going to read to you about our wonderful Jonas, his little sister Lily, his best female friend Fiona, and male friend Asher. Maybe we'll hear about the chief elder or even the giver. But please, if you would, do that now. And let's see if this automatic link works like it should. Look at that. When we left off, we were on page 88. Page 88. I'm going to try to make it a little bigger. Okay, so zoom out, zoom. Well, I was trying to zoom in. I don't think that I did a very good job. I'm hoping that it is still recording us. So we're on page 88. 88. Hold on just for 1 minute. Okay, I had to move my computer closer to me so that I could read, because it is not wanting to enlarge. All right, so you slept soundly, Jonas? His mother asked at the morning meal. No dreams? Jonas simply smiled and nodded, not ready to lie, not willing to tell the truth. I slept very soundly, he said, from his chair leaning down from, but I skipped. I slept very soundly, he said. I wish this one would, his father said, leaning down from his chair to touch Gabriel's waving fist, the basket on the floor beside him. In its corner, beside Gabriel's head, the stuffed hippo sat staring with its blank eyes. So do I, Mother said, rolling her eyes. He's so fretful at night. Jonas had not heard the new child during the night because, as always, he had slept soundly. But it was not true that he had had no dreams. Again and again as he slept, he had slid down that snow-covered hill. Always in the dream, it seemed as if there were a destination, a something, he couldn't grasp what, that lay beyond the place where the thickness of snow brought the sled to a stop. He was left, upon awakening, with the feeling that he wanted, even somehow needed, to reach the something that waited in the distance. The feeling that it was good, that it was welcoming, that it was significant. But he didn't know how to get there. He tried to shed the leftover dream, gathering his schoolwork and preparing for the day. School seemed a little different today. The classes were the same: language and communications, commerce and industry, science and technology, civil procedures and government. But during the breaks for recreation periods and midday meal, the other new 12s were abuzz with descriptions of their first day of training. All of them talked at once, interrupting each other, hastily making the required apology for interrupting, then forgetting again in the excitement of describing the new experiences. Jonas listened. He was very aware of his own admonition not to discuss his training, but it would have been impossible anyway. There was no way to describe to his friends what he had experienced there in the annex room. How could he describe a sled without describing a hill and snow? And how could you describe a hill and snow to someone who had never felt height or wind or that feathery, magical cold? Even trained for years as they all had been in precision of language, what words could you use which would give another the experience of sunshine? So it was easy for Jonas to be still and to listen. After school hours, he rode again beside Fiona to the house of the old. "I looked for you yesterday," she told him, "so we could ride together. Your bike was still there and I waited for a little while, but it was getting late, so I went on home." "I apologize for making you wait," Jonas said. "I accept your apology," she replied automatically. "I stayed a little longer than I expected," Jonas explained. She pedaled forward silently, and he knew that she expected him to tell her why. She expected him to describe his first day of training, but to ask would have fallen into the category of rudeness. "You've been doing so many volunteer hours with the old," Jonas said, changing the subject. "There won't be much that you don't know already." "Oh, there's lots to learn," Fiona replied. "There's administrative work and the dietary rules and punishment for disobedience. Did you know that they use a discipline wand on the old, the same as for small children? And there's occupational therapy and recreational activities and medications, and they reach the building and break their bikes." So put in your notes, please, that Jonas found it very hard to talk about his job as receiver because his training had experiences that his friends could never understand. So Jonas found it hard to talk about his first day of training because his training had experiences his friends could never understand. When you did your attendance activity and you thought about what would be your first experience learning to do your job, I wonder if you thought it that deeply. If you had the job like Fiona of attending to the elderly, did you think that it involved things like medicine and recreation activities, occupational therapy? That's when they teach people or remind people, reteach them how to use their hands or their feet to walk. Something to consider. Every job in our society is important, and it requires training to do it well. Anyway, I really think I'll like it better than school, Fiona confessed. "Me too," Jonas agreed, wheeling his bike into its place. She waited for a second, as if again she expected him to go on. Then she looked at her watch, waved, and hurried toward the entrance. Jonas stood for a moment beside his bike, startled. It had happened again, the thing that he thought of now as seeing beyond. This time it had been Fiona who had undergone that fleeting, indescribable change. As he looked up and toward her going through the door, it happened. She changed. Actually, Jonas thought, trying to recreate it in his mind, it wasn't Fiona in her entirety. It seemed to be just her hair, and just for that flickering instance. Go ahead and write that down. Fiona changed just for an instant while Jonas glanced at her. And it seemed to just be her hair, so Fiona's hair changed. He ran through it in his mind. It was clearly beginning to happen more often. First, the apple a few weeks before. The next time had been the faces in the audience at the auditorium just 2 days ago. Now today, Fiona's hair. Remember that the pictures that you saw in my classroom, the photographs in my PowerPoint of the parents and Lily sitting in the audience when he was getting his job assignment, they were very dull, sort of what we'd say black and white. That's how the people in this world see. It's the sameness. Nothing too exciting, just kind of blah. And he's seeing flashes. And we said that the first color he saw was red in that apple. Okay. Frowning, Jonas walked toward the annex. I will ask the giver, he decided. The old man looked up, smiling, when Jonas entered the room. He was already seated beside the bed, and he seemed more energetic today, slightly renewed, and glad to see Jonas. Welcome, he said. We must get started. You're 1 minute late. I apologize, Jonas began, and then stopped, flustered, remembering there were to be no apologies. He removed his tunic and went to the bed. I'm 1 minute late because something happened, he explained, and I'd like to ask you about it if you don't mind. You may ask me anything. Jonas tried to sort out in his mind so he could explain it clearly. I think it's what you call seeing beyond, he said. The giver nodded. Describe it, he said. Jonas told him about the experience with the apple. Then the moment on the stage when he had looked out and seen the same phenomena in the faces of the crowd. Then today, just now outside, it happened with my friend Fiona. She herself didn't change exactly, but something about her changed for a second. Her hair looked different, but not in its shape and not in its length. I can't quite... Jonas paused, frustrated by his inability to grasp and describe exactly what had occurred. Finally, he simply said, it changed. I don't know how or why. That's why I was 1 minute late, he concluded, and looked questioningly at the giver. To his surprise, the old man asked him a question, which seemed unrelated to the seeing beyond. When I gave you the memory yesterday, the first one, the ride on the sled, did you look around? Jonas nodded. Yes, he said, but the stuff, the snow in the air, made it hard to see anything. Did you look at the sled? Jonas thought back. No, I only felt it under me. I dreamed of it last night, too. But I don't remember seeing the sled in my dream either, just feeling it. The giver seemed to be thinking. When I was observing you before the selection, I perceived that you probably had the capacity, and what you describe confirms it. It happened somewhat differently to me, the giver told him. When I was just your age, about to become the new receiver, I began to experience it, though it took a different form. With me it was, well, I won't describe that now. You wouldn't understand it yet. But I think I can guess how it's happening with you. Look, let me just make a little test to confirm my guess. Lie down. Jonas lay on the bed, again with his hands at his sides. He felt comfortable here now. He closed his eyes and waited for the familiar feel of the giver's hands on his back. But it didn't come. Instead, the giver instructed him, call back the memory of the ride on the sled. Just the beginning of it, where you're at the top of the hill before the slide starts. And this time, look down at the sled. Jonas was puzzled. He opened his eyes. "Excuse me," he said politely, "but don't you have to give me the memory? It's your memory now. It's not mine to experience any longer. I gave it away. But how can I call it back? You can remember last year or the year that you were a 7 or a 5, can't you?" Of course. It's much the same. Everyone in the community has one generation memories like those. But now you will be able to go back farther. Try, just concentrate. Jonas closed his eyes again. He took a deep breath and sought the sled and the hill and the snow in his consciousness. There they were, with no effort. He was again sitting in the whirling world of snowflakes atop the hill. Jonas grinned with delight and blew his own steamy breath into view. Then, as he had been instructed, he looked down. He saw his own hands, furred again with snow, holding the rope. He saw his legs and moved them aside for a glimpse of the sled beneath. Dumbfounded, he stared at it. This time, it was not a fleeting impression. This time, the sled had, and continued to have as he blinked and stared at it again, that same mysterious quality that the apple had had so briefly, and Fiona's hair. The sled did not change. It simply was, whatever the thing was. Jonas opened his eyes and was still on the bed. The giver was watching him curiously. Yes, Jonas, Jonas said slowly. "I saw it in the sled. Let me try one more thing. Look over there to the bookcase. Do you see the very top row of books? The ones behind the table on the top shelf?" Jonas sought them with his eyes. He stared at them, and they changed. But the change was fleeting. It slipped away the next instant. "It happened," Jonas said. "It happened to the books. But it went away again." "I'm right then," the giver said. "You're beginning to see the color red." So put that in your notes, please. Jonas is beginning to see the color red. Not just in the apple, and not just in Fiona's hair, but wherever it exists, he's seeing it. It's fleeting, of course. "The what?" The giver sighed. How to explain this? Once, back in the time of the memories, everything had a shape and size, the way things still do. But they also had a quality called color. There were a lot of colors, and one of them was called red. That's the one you're starting to see. Your friend Fiona has red hair, quite distinctive, actually. I've noticed it before. When you mentioned Fiona's hair, it was the clue that told me that you were probably beginning to see the color red. And the faces of people, the ones I saw at the ceremony? The giver shook his head. No, flesh isn't red, but it has red tones in it. There was a time, actually, you'll see this in the memories later, when flesh was many different colors. That was before we went to the sameness. Today, flesh is all the same, and what you saw was the red tones. So put that in your notes. Everyone in Jonas's community has the same color skin. Apparently, it's light enough that you can see hints of red, the red tones that make some people just a shade darker than the person beside them. Probably when you saw the faces take on color, it wasn't as deep or vibrant as the apple or your friend's hair. The giver chuckled suddenly. We've never completely mastered sameness. I suppose the genetic scientists are still hard at work trying to work the kinks out. Hair like Fiona's must drive them crazy. So isn't that interesting? Put in your notes that the scientists are aware of the colors and they're trying to get rid of them. So everyone would have the same color hair, same eyes, same skin tone. The scientists are still trying to get rid of it. Okay, Jonas listened, trying hard to comprehend. And the sled, he said, it had that same thing, the color red, but it didn't change, Giver. It just was. Because it's a memory from the time when color was. It was so, oh, I wish language were more precise. The red was so beautiful. The Giver nodded. It is. Do you see it all the time? I see all of them, all of the colors. Will I? Of course. When you receive the memories, you have the capacity to see beyond. You'll gain wisdom, then along with colors and lots more. Jonas wasn't interested just then in wisdom. It was the colors that fascinated him. Why can't everyone see them? Why did colors disappear? The Giver shrugged. Our people made that choice. The choice to go to sameness. Before my time, before the previous time, back and back and back, we relinquished color when we relinquished sunshine and did away with differences. He thought for a moment. We gained control of many things, but we had to let go of others. So put that down. That generations before Jonas and the Giver, the people willingly gave up a lot so that they would have the sameness. We shouldn't have, Jonas said fiercely. The Giver looked startled at the certainty of Jonas's reaction. Then he smiled wryly. You've come very quickly to that conclusion, he said. It took me many years. Maybe your wisdom will come much more quickly than mine. He glanced at the wall clock. Lie back down now. We have so much to do. Giver, Jonas asked as he arranged himself again on the bed. How did it happen to you when you were becoming the Giver? You said that the seeing beyond happened to you, but not the same way. The hands came to his back. Another day, the Giver said gently. I'll tell you another day. Now we must work. And I've thought of a way to help you with the concept of color. Close your eyes and be still now. I'm going to give you a memory of a rainbow. So put down that Jonas is being given the memory of a rainbow. What a beautiful thing, huh? A rainbow represents hope. There's something better out there for us. Okay, we are going to stop on page 96. So we're going to be on page, let me write it down, 97 when we return again. And I am going to minimize this. Okay, so you should have some notes for the Giver. And I'm hoping that today, or when you have time, but I'm looking for it today, that you'll catch up on all of your assignments that you may have missed. Because, you know, the further behind you fall, the harder it is. That makes it stressful. And I don't want you to be stressed, because then I'm stressed thinking about you being stressed, and then your poor parents are stressed. Stress is rough. Maybe we should give up on stress. At any rate, you're going to be reading about microbes. Microbes. Are they our friend or our foe? And I want to remind you about Raz Kids. With Raz Kids, of course, you're going to listen to the books first, and then you're going to read them yourself, and then you're going to take a quiz. Okay? So this is the end of the reading class PowerPoint. It continues, as you may have noticed. The PowerPoints are one day added to each PowerPoint, so that by the end of the week you have a PowerPoint that looks sort of like this, many different colors, almost like a rainbow. Yesterday, which was, Tuesday, it was green, and then it was black on Monday. Okay, with that being said, on on the computer, I thought I pulled up, oh, there it is, RazKids. So yes, it's been a while since we've been on RazKids, so you may have forgotten that there are different classes. There are 3 of them. One of them is B, Cynthia, and then the number 0, okay? And in that class, these students are in that class, so maybe your name is among them, okay? So if you see your name, that is your class. Now, let's see if it will allow me to switch teachers. And you'll notice that there's another class called C Barber 65. Now, the people who are in this class, these are these folks, right? Ooh, nope, don't want to go there. I'll just hold this here so you can see them. If your name is among these, then yours is C Barber 65. Okay? And then there's yet another class. I'll do it here. And it is Joshua 87. So maybe you see your name here. Okay, so there are 3 classes. You will click on your name and you'll put your password. If you need help with your password and remembering it, you can certainly contact me. But remember, there are 3 choices for your classes. There's C Barber 65, there's B Cynthia 0, and there's Joshua 87. And you would put those in here. You'd click on and you'd look for your name. And then once you see your name, you will click on your name and you'll put your password, whatever it may be. So if you need help with that, you just let me know. And remember, you log in daily into your Google Classroom. And where I have my classes, you should have all of yours lined up. And then you click into it, and the first thing you'll see, let's say I'm in 7th grade reading intensive, the first thing I'll see will be the lesson for the day. Of course, this was yesterday's, so you'll find the lesson for today posted along with the PowerPoint. And of course, today I'll be putting the video that I've made. And if you are in 6th grade reading intensive, the case should be the same. It tells you exactly what you need to do, and there'll be a PowerPoint there every day to assist you. And then when you go into your classwork, bam, there's all the classwork. And you always will have an attendance activity and an exit activity. Okay? And of course, we also have vocabulary, which will be some of your work. We have our mail, the Google Mail. So where mine says C for Cynthia, yours will have your first initial, and then you have all of these options here. And if you are invited to by a teacher, you might go to a Google Meet. Maybe a whole class goes in there, maybe just a couple of you to talk, or you can have a nice little chat, or you can do in your mail the little hangouts. But it's a very interactive sort of thing. So I hope that this particular lesson has assisted you, and I want to remind you, if you have family members who are in the medical field, thank them. They are our heroes. Finish the assignments you may have missed. Look on Google Classroom for your work every day. If you need to, you can handwrite or type your assignments and send them to me at this email as attachments. Don't forget, you have to listen, then read, and then quiz for your book, which is your exit ticket today. This is your attendance activity. You're just going to write in there one sentence that will answer the question, what do you think would be your first task that you would have to learn for your job that you were assigned? I read to you up to page 97 of The Giver. And your exit ticket is going to be microbes, friend or foe. It is under your assignments in Raz Kids. I hope that you're going to have a blessed day. It's Wednesday. I'm looking forward to seeing you soon, I hope, May 1st. And so with that being said, bless you, and don't do anything that would disappoint or embarrass yourself, your family, or your teammates. Kia kaha.